But serious fun is going to bring people to the revolution.
I came back from the 2 weeks of meeting Boal there, and I quit my job and I started a theater company.
And then we invite them, but they told for us, no, we cannot play for you. You have to play your own questions.
I think that any movement needs to have spaces and moments of self-reflection.
It's whereby you allow the community to find their way to express what is important to them. At the same time, what we wanted to do is to bring their story not just amongst the community, but bring it out of their community to engage with local Singaporeans.
Politics does not come separately to me. It's theatre as politics, which Boal used to say.
Hi, welcome anybody who's out there. I'm Adrian Jackson, and this is the second in our second series of really interesting conversations about the theatre of the oppressed, with a series of fascinating theatre makers, practitioners from around the world. So last week we started the second series, that side of the world, with Hector Aristizabal, who was in Colombia, and now we're staying that side of the world, and I'm delighted to welcome from Guatemala Lorena Roffé, who has been a really significant player in establishing a network of TO practitioners that side of the world, alongside her own work with her collaborator and partner Stefan Gui, and also a significant contributor to the very important Magdalena's network. So without further ado, Lorena, will you magically appear? Hi. Welcome.
Thank you.
Already we are encountering one of the difficulties Lorena encountered and I encountered earlier, which was there were two Lorenas. There was one who was speaking and one who we were seeing, but hopefully they've come together. But if there's a bit of a time lag, we apologize for it. Hopefully we can hear. How are you, Lorena? How is it?
I'm all about multiplication.
You're all about multiplication. That's perfect. It's perfect. We have multiplied you already. Fantastic. So tell us how you're speaking from Guatemala. How is it there at the moment? I think people are also interested in how is it with the coronavirus situation there. Give us a little bit of the context you're in at the moment, please.
Well, it's hard. It's government is not managing the virus. It's complicated. All the public health, it's collapsing. The vaccine campaign, it's very, very slow, very chaotic. And also, actually, it wasn't a real quarantine because lots of people here do like informal work, and it was no really support from the government to stay at home. So people keep going out and working because that's what they need to live. So it's a very complicated situation. It's not.
What is the attitude towards the vaccine as a matter of interest? Because in some countries there seems to be quite a lot of vaccine hesitancy amongst various groups.
Yeah. No, here I think people they really want to get the vaccine, but there's not enough. And the priorities also that the government have, they are very, we can discuss about that. Not, we are not sure that they are the best. For example, for instance, people with disabilities, they are not getting vaccine in priority, and we know that they are in more vulnerable situation. But people, yes, most of the people do want to get the vaccine.
Okay, good to hear. And I know you work with, amongst the other groups you work quite a lot with people with disabilities. So let's come to your work. I've asked the same question mostly. How did you come to Boal, or how did Boal and that work come to you?
Well, actually, I was working already in Guatemala in a project of arts for social transformation. I was trained as an actress, and already being in this project was like great for me to come together with my activism and my social work and the arts. But and then I'm original Argentina, so I went to visit my family, and a friend of mine said, well, you have to read Boal, you have to read the actors. So my brother bought me the book, and I brought it back to Guatemala, and I remember being next to the lake here in the small village where I live, and started reading it, and I was like, yes, yes, I agree, yes, wow. And I was so amazed that like someone wrote it, and it was so, yeah, I was totally convinced, and it was like someone was writing what I thought has to be done, but I didn't know that it exists.
It's so interesting, Lorena. I think so many people I've spoken to, and myself included, it's like we bumped into this work, and it was like it had to exist because it filled a hole we had absolutely perfectly, you know. So that yes reaction is very familiar.
Yeah. So then I started, okay, where do I get a training? How do I, sorry, because of the delay, I started worrying.
No, go on. How do you get training?
Yeah, so I started talking with Stefan, that I did collaborate at the same time already with another project, and he was also enthusiastic about Theater of the Oppressed, and we were like, okay, maybe here in Guatemala, no, maybe Mexico, no, in other countries of Central America, and we didn't find any training, and was very, I was very disappointed. But then I have this amazing opportunity that I have a family meeting in Argentina again. So I said, okay, so I will go to Argentina, South America, then I will have my training, my TO training. And I went to Argentina and I didn't find anything. And that was like, okay, that starts to be weird. But I found the Spanish training that the CTO did once a year. And it was just in the same dates that I had available on my travel to Argentina. So it was like magic. I called Stefan, I say, okay, I'm going, if you want to come. I'm just going to the CTO. And I went there, I did this 1 week training and with Ellen and Oliver. And I remember Bárbara saying we had a talk with her, was 2009, right after the conference, and saying, well, it's very important to have more Theater of the Oppressed in Latin America. And I remember looking at Stefan saying, okay, let's do that. And we just went back to Guatemala, and then we started.
That is what you've done. It's a very interesting and strange anomaly. I suppose it's a product of Augusto's exile, that even though he did a lot of work early on in that part of the world around you, actually that you should discover there was so little training immediately available to you there. Of course, so you had to go to CTO Rio to do the training. But it's sort of ironic that it's gone that way around. But he was in Europe so long, I suppose, that that's what he did. But so then you set up yourself. You started yourself a network, is that correct?
Yeah, actually we started with one group. We just came back to Guatemala, and we worked with HIV prevention, and was a group of people living with HIV that already approached us to work with theater. And when we came back from CTO, was like, okay, we know that what we are going to do together. We are going to do TO. We started with this group, and we were amazed by the impact and how powerful it was. And then we decided, we say, well, we need to do that with many, many groups in all Central America, but we just, two of us, we can't do that. So we need to, we have to train more people, we have to multiply the methodology. And actually, then it's when Metoca started.
So you should, of course, I want to ask you a question before that, though. You were already doing what you're describing as HIV/AIDS prevention work. So what was the difference in the way you now approached it with TO, and why was it more effective, if you feel it was more effective? Before, what was it you were doing? Information propagation, sort of just explaining to people, sort of theater of information? How did it work before?
Yes, we used street art and clowning to get to the indigenous villages and to rural areas with information about HIV prevention. But the main thing was not telling people how to prevent HIV, but working with the people that were living with HIV and getting to know what are the difficulties and strengthening their fight. So what's completely different, we changed all our approach, and we stopped with all this like information theater that is important as well, but we found that it made much more sense to work directly with the people and fight with them through TO for their rights.
So would it be fair to say it became more about dialogue, basically? I mean, and more questions, less answers. Yeah. Was that? Yeah.
Of course.
So then you set up Metoca. You should explain to people the various meanings of Metoca.
Yeah. So Metoca, it's it touches me. Metoca. I'm not indifferent to what is happening. It touches me. And also it's like Metoca, it's my turn. So we believe that it's our turn to do something. And also it's multiplication and exploration of theater of the oppressed in Central America. So if we take the first word of all these, if the first letter, it also makes Metoca.
It's a very clever title with so many meanings. I wondered if it also meant like when you play the game and somebody taps you, or whether it was like that's, you know, we say in English like you're it. Is it like that as well, or is that what Metoca? No.
Yeah, well, it could be. But it's more like my turn. It's my turn. My turn. Metoca hacer algo. It's my turn to do something.
And what did Metoca start doing?
So actually, we started with a whole process
of ice cream van.
Multiplication.
Sorry. It's an ice cream van outside my house, so I closed the window.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started at the beginning in collaboration with the CTO, and then just ourselves with multiplication in Central America and Mexico. So we were in Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Mexico and Guatemala. And actually, our multiplication was focused on groups, on community-based groups. So the condition to be part of the multiplication was be a part of a group, because we didn't want TO to be another training that people have. And here there are many, many trainings, so people are specialists in everything and can be also specialists in nothing. And we really wanted TO as a way to transform realities, and you can't do it by your own. You have to do it in collective with a group. So that was the commitment that people had to have. Since we started with Metoca, they were like more than 70 groups, community groups that were involved in the different multiplications in all the region. And we have like these training times, but also we went to do like a follow-up in each country to see what are the difficulties and also what were the specificities of each place, and supporting the Curinga. And at the end, we have different festivals also. So groups could meet and also have an exchange.
So we're probably using some words which I guess most of our audience are familiar with, but some may not be. And I want to remind people, I didn't say at the beginning, please put questions that you have for Lorena in the comments, and we'll deal with them later on in the session together. And it occurs to me that you're using the word Curinga, which is of course translated in English as joker. But multiplication, we throw that word around a lot because it's important. How would you judge what is successful multiplication? What do you mean by multiplication exactly?
Well, I mean training facilitators to be able to lead a process with a group. And for me, it's successful when this group can change something of this reality that they decided to work through theater of the oppressed. I think, when they are long-term processes, when some advocacy has been done, when they are not alone, when they get to have articulation with different social organizations, and they can have a voice and action in reality.
In the various multiplications that you've done, or events that you've led, are there any particular groups which you're particularly happy that they've continued afterwards? You're aware how they've grown, how they've done their own multiplying, and so on and so on.
Yes. Well, there's one group of women, of immigrants in Guatemalan and Mexican border. This one was a very challenging process, because how to do a long-term process with people that are in movement and that they are changing all the time. So we learned a lot about how to make a process that is long-term. Even the participants of the group were changing, but reality didn't change. So they were like replaced to organize themselves and to do real advocacy with the local organizations and institutions to have, they were fighting for being able to rent houses, because people didn't want to rent houses to immigrant women, because they say, well, they will let the kids by themselves as the house and they will ruin the houses. And even if they could pay, they didn't rent the houses. So two achieves that they had was organizing like a childcare with support of different organizations, where they can have their kids and going to work, and that was easier to rent a house by that. And also having like a registry of people that do rent houses to migrants. So they were facilities, I don't know how to say, to rent houses, and all that was like an advocacy process that they did after the legislative theater process that we did together. So that's
how long was that? How long, Lorena, was that process? From when you began to when they were strengthened as advocates and you were able to do the legislative theater process, and those changes, those concrete changes you've described occurred?
It was around 4 years since the very beginning.
And how often would you be working with them in that period, or were you totally hands off by then and they were just doing it themselves?
No, that was something that we do a lot, that it's these alliances that became also collaborations in specific projects. So one of the multiplicators of Metoca that was trained by us, she was working with migrants in the Mexican border. So she called us to support her in her process with the group. So we went once a month to Mexico and we worked with the group, but she did the follow-up every week. So we came like to strengthen the work, and she had with the group, she created all the connections, all the local connections, and she knew more the reality, and she was more in managing all the relationship of the group and of the group with all the organizations and the social movement and the institutions.
Many years ago, I mean, I didn't help you speak about your time scale, but you started that in 2009 or something. I think you had your Boal revelation, as it were, your Boal epiphany. But actually, which is of course the year that he died. Did you ever see him? Did you ever see Augusto, or was he already dead when you started?
Yeah, no, I arrived to CTO 1 month after the conference, so a couple of months after he was gone. But okay, I met him
we missed each other by a short time because I was there, of course, at that conference. But that's a pity. But this thing is familiar that you say, and I think it's important people perhaps starting companies understand this, the importance of partnership, the importance of collaboration, that you know something, but people on the ground know something else, and
that makes all the difference,
Yeah. And what I was going to say was that years ago, Augusto had this dream of what he called the flying jokers, which I suppose many of us have sort of become anyway, which was sort of the flying joker. There used to be a series in England called The Flying Doctor. It was set in Australia. And these jokers would come in and help start something and then go away, if you see what I mean. And that's sort of what you're describing with your relationship there. Okay, tell us a bit about the development of the Magdalenas and your part in that, please. Did you get that? I'm going to say it again. Maybe please. I'm delayed now. I'm sorry. Tell us a bit about the Magdalenas, the network, and your part in that, please.
Yeah. Magdalena Network is the network of the International Network of Feminist Theater of the Oppressed. I joined the network in 2012. It was started in 2010 by Bárbara Santos and also Alessandra Banucci, but Bárbara Santos really pushes, and still till now, with a great group that coordinates it, that with Mariana Vigliani, Carolina Echeverria, Gandari Benigno, Claudia Simone, and myself, and many other groups. Since we began, the network was growing, and it was growing because actually was a need. And when we started, and each one, when we met the specificity of the methodology, and when we experienced this laboratory, everyone was like, okay, yes, that's what I was needing. If we talk about epiphany, that was my second epiphany, the second revolution. And actually, the multiplication started to begin crazy, like many groups in Latin America at the beginning, and then also in Europe. Actually, now we are in 5 continents. And we became a network that really works together. And I think things that are interesting are, that it really changed the map of Curingas, of jokers in the world, about of presence of women. And also inside the network, we started questioning about other specificities as Black women. So also inside the network started like specific groups like Black women, that is the Anastasias, and with immigrants, and me, I'm working like all the project that we did with women living with HIV, women with disabilities. So the network really helped to develop methodology and the space and the legitimacy to be in groups that live of the network and of the map of the TO in the world and in Latin America and in the world. And also we are developing the collective forum, another way of doing legislative theater. So really gave us this push, legitimacy also to explore and to develop and to become also creators of the TO. I think also developing aesthetics of our feminist aesthetics as well. Well, yeah, lots of things.
There was a little bit of that where you froze, but I think we got most of it. So I suppose it'd be interesting to hear about, particularly you described new models of legislative theatre or different models of legislative theatre. So I think most people listening or watching will probably know that legislative theatre was Augusto's creation as a way of using theatre in its original form, a way of using theatre, if you like, to make and challenge laws, to interrogate laws, and so on. And of course, he had the advantage of actually becoming effectively a member of parliament or like that. Most of us are not going to become members of parliament. Tell us about the way you have used legislative theatre, maybe differently.
Yeah, well, it was actually myself, I started doing this different way of legislative theater with another two jokers, Clelia and Jennifer, in Mexico with immigrants. But at the same time, Barbara was also developing in Berlin with the Magdalenas, and we agree on this way of or in democratizing the legislative theater, doing it less hierarchically or
less hierarchically,
more
and more horizontally.
Thank you.
Yeah,
more horizontally. So instead of having these professionals, this
what Boal called the metabolizing
experts.
cell. Yeah,
but instead of having the metabolizing cell only, but these experts that came from out of the audience and out of the group, having more a kind of groups of work groups that can metabolize also the proposals together. So this metabolization process became much more democratic, and also like people, and I started actually with the HIV group, that people also can say if this policy is interesting for them or not, if they think that they will, that this policy or this law will change something in their own reality or not. And so it's also giving this power to a group, not only to the experts. So we do metabolize with the experts, but also with the group that are experts as well, because they live this situation, and also with the audience. So those groups metabolize, and then we do more a kind of agree assembly with the proposals that were that each group had selected.
Yeah. I mean, I think that many practitioners around the world have gone in a similar direction. I mean, I know Katie Rubin in New York, they took almost a whole day for a legislative theatre session because they spent so much time together in groups. So I think that's going. I suppose one thing that's interesting is for many people with legislative theatre is outcomes. How do you follow through and see what happens next or what happens afterwards?
Yes, many times we actually do a kind of agreement with the people that are participating, like the institutions. We don't go so much on law, on changing law, but changing policies, and also organizing social actions. So actually, we agree with institutions that they will listen to the proposals and that they will implement at least one or two of the proposals before they know what they are going to be. And that really helps. We did it also in the hospital with the HIV group in a hospital here in Guatemala. We did it also in Mexico, and it really it does a follow-up from the beginning. So at the end of this metabolizing time, we sit with the people with the decision makers, and we say, okay, so which part can you take to make this real? Okay, and it was an amazing moment, a really powerful moment for the people on the group to sit in front of decision maker and say, okay, so what are you going to do? And the decision maker has to commit to something.
And do you chase them, Lorena, afterwards? Our experience is very often people will say things, but you need to chase them in a month or 2 months and say, have you done what you promised to do? You know, do you have that follow-up?
Yes, it happened. It depends where I work. For example, in Mexico, it was more the joker, like the local joker, that did the chasing. At the hospital, it was the people of the group with our support. It depends. But yeah, of course, if it's not magic, it's not that easy. But I found and for example, also because the proposals, because they are not only focused on law, they also push to social organization, to collective actions. So we had that as a result as well. And then we don't need to be chasing anyone or less. We are like, okay, we as a group, we came up with this idea of a concrete action.
Yeah, we have a nice model somewhere similar to that, where we are working in different towns in the country. We'll work with different local groups, and we will get counselors. We will get counselors in as well as organizations, and we will really nail them, as it were, to commit to actions, and we'll follow them afterwards. So again, it's not exactly law, but it's sometimes local policy, which is pretty close to law, perhaps more important than law, actually, sometimes. You know, how people actually do things. Are there any examples you want to give of a particularly successful session or project where you're aware of a policy having changed quite considerably afterwards, or a new idea having been implemented?
Yeah, well, I actually, it had a lot of impact when we did a continental project, which we were working with women with HIV in different countries, in 11 different countries of Latin America. And we did it with Magdalena's jokers in those countries. And actually, for example, in Costa Rica, they really changed the local policy for the treatment and for all the health services for women with HIV. So we didn't do legislative theater process there, but only with the forum theater process. They became really aware of the need of changing the policies, and the group became very, very strong. And they did this advocacy, and they wrote the new policy of healthcare for women with HIV. So I think
that's nice.
that's one
example. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, it's interesting drawing the distinction between forum and what forum does, and legislative theatre and what legislative theatre does, because often it's the case, isn't it, that the forum provokes the conversation and the ideas, and then if we want, it's not always necessary, but if we want, we can do that legislative theatre process then immediately and then say, now we want you to make this concrete, to make this real. But sometimes it's enough that you seed the ideas, I think, as they've been. Tell us about groups that you're working with right now. I saw on your website you work quite a lot with people with physical disabilities. Is that correct? You missed me, you lost me there, I think. That's okay. On your website, I was seeing quite a lot of work with people with physical disabilities. Has that been a concentration in Guatemala of Metoca?
Well, we started with we worked with people with disabilities a couple of years ago, maybe 2013 in Nicaragua. That was our first experience where we were training local jokers, people with disability, as jokers of their own groups. That was with the Federation of People with Disabilities in Nicaragua. But then also, actually, it became, after me being more and more engaged in Magdalena Network, to be more aware of the need of people, of women having their specific space. So we also have an articulation here with the very first collective of women with disability in Guatemala. They actually wanted to start, and the leader, the one that was articulating this group, was part of a laboratory of Magdalena's that we did here, and she said, okay, maybe we can do that with the collective. Actually, this starting with with the Feminist Theater of the Oppressed, with the group, with the collective of women with disability, was the big push for the collective to start organizing themselves and doing more work, calling more people, and doing more different projects of advocacy and also to support women with disabilities. So it's since 2019 that we are working together, and it's a whole new. Every specificity that we work helps us also to develop methodology. So there were lots of questions about the rhythm of the process. There were lots of questions about how to do this structural analysis, how to do this reflection about the structural part of the oppression that they were experiencing, because they were not only people with physical disabilities, but also with we call mental disabilities or learning disabilities. Yeah. So sure. How to engage, and actually it's so rich because we have all these aesthetics that helps us to communicate in different ways. So we don't need to go everything through the rational thinking. We have all this sensitive thinking that really amazes me every time about with the impact and the way that they can also have this analysis, and then they are engaged on changing it once they understood it.
You mentioned the rhythm of work. Talk a little bit about that, how that needs to change when working with the groups you're working with.
Well, with people with disability, there's something like a notion of creep time, I think it's in English, I don't know, but like the time of people with disabilities, that it's another time, another rhythm, another pace of work, not only because they are because external barriers yeah, and also like in limits of movement, of expression. So it was a lot. I learned a lot. It was a big lesson of, okay, really, always, right? Like listening the group and listening to the needs and to the desires of the group and go with the group. So I'm very passionate and I want to do it and more, and I want a full day of workshop, and actually understand that it was a full day of workshop. Also, if we did half of the exercises that we planned to do, but they were deep, and the time that we needed to also to that another thing that is important, the time is to really get the participation of everyone, because not everyone will answer at the same time, because it won't take the same time for each one to express themselves. So really assure that we have all this time so all the people can participate.
Yeah. I think crip time is probably an expression which is only disabled people would be allowed to use, but it's a great clear thing, and I completely understand.
I took it from them.
No, absolutely. I can imagine my friend Jenny Seeley, who runs the theatre company Grey Eye, using a very similar kind of expression. But it's about understanding how a group is going to travel with the work in its own way, and not assuming that the way you've done with every other group is the way you're going to travel through the work. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to ask you one or two quite dull questions now, but I think they're important to people. How do you survive? How do you sustain how does Metoca sustain itself financially? Sorry, it's a boring question, but people sort of want to know these things. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
How are you funded, basically, Lorena?
By Coca-Cola. No, it was a bad joke.
You'll get a load of comments coming now. No, irony is problematic. No, I don't think you're funded by Coca-Cola, but are you funded by NGOs or?
Actually, we have no. I'll do a serious answer. We have 3 different ways of funding our activities. We have one that it's like co-funding. So we have some funds, or we have the work that we can do, and we ask for community-based groups to also give something. So we found that together. For instance, on the first multiplication, we did, okay, we will go and no one will, like, we will give to sleep and give us food and assure that we get there. So we do it like that, like a co-funding. Also, we do collaborations on writing proposals. For instance, with a group of women with disabilities, we do a lot. We write together proposals, and then we do the project together. And also, we answer to grants, or organizations just call us to invite us to do the work. So they worry, that's the one that I like the most, I think. They worry about the funding, they give all the resources, and we do the work. But it depends, and also it's not true that that's the one that I like the most, because it depends. Also, when we write the proposals, we know that it will be exactly, or the closest to our dream, and sometimes it's not. But yeah, usually I can say that we do the projects that we like. We have very like lines that we don't cross, and actually that was not a joke about Coca-Cola, because we did it. We did no to a big project that was funded by Coca-Cola. Right. Yes.
The Coca-Cola the Coca-Cola Theatre of the Oppressed project, I don't think it's going to be popular. I don't think it's going to work.
No.
I think we should we can abandon the Coca-Cola Theatre of the Oppressed. And in Metoca, there are. Is it mainly you yourself and Stefan, who is in France, by the way, and says hello from France? You probably know he's in France.
Yes.
Yeah. But is it just you and Stefan, or do you have other members of the team full time?
Yeah, we are a staff of 4 now in the team. It's also Jennifer, that it's a part of the of our team. Actually, Jennifer Marshall, that also translated the book, the Bárbara's books to English, and another person that helps us with the logistic and accountability, Delfino. But now it's because we are in like the mini staff. We were much that we can call, as we called on the continental projects, and we were a team of 15. So if it depends on the projects that we do also.
You disappeared for a moment in that, but I think we got most of that. I'm interested in a couple of things. You started as an actor, and I'm presuming from what you're saying that you don't find time to do acting, the regular acting, as it were, now, or do you still do that alongside your Theatre of the Oppressed work?
Well, I'm going back to acting more and more. The last year, I found that I was missing it. We're doing now with Paso a Paso with Claudia Simone and Bastian Viltard, and Stefan and myself. We are doing a piece of a forum theater piece about gender violence at work. So I'm playing now down then, and I'm glad to do it. And we had another projects, like not in the TO field thing, but I like to do it, and I'm doing it more.
Just say that one again, because that sounded very interesting, and you disappeared. You had another project not in the TO field. What was that?
We are exploring street art to laugh a lot about romantic love.
That sounds healthy. Another thing I was wondering, Stefan is a clown by training, yes? I wondered whether you had combined clowning very much with your TO work.
Not really. No, it's something people in Costa Rica do it a lot, the Colectivo Respiral, but we didn't do it. No, it wasn't an approach that we had. And
how important for you is the theatre, as somebody who comes from the theatre, how important for you is the theatre? You spoke a little bit about the aesthetics before. I think many of the different people I've spoken to and many of the different people who occupy the world of TO, people tend to come either from activism or they come from theatre, and they meet in slightly different places, and they place a slightly different importance, I suppose, on theatre and the outcomes. Where are you on all that?
Well, I was trained as an actress, but I come from the activism as well. So I'm a feminist, and I come from the activism as well. So I feel like all my path as an actress was, okay, how theater can change reality. So it's always around that. And I think, Theater of the Oppressed is theater. So we need to also have artistic quality. We have aesthetics is something that it's crucial in all the creations that we do. It's something that we really explore with the Magdalena Network, and different ways of feminist aesthetics. I do think, and I see also how important and how dignifying is to not just do a forum theater piece that talks about something that is important, but also do it in a very powerful aesthetic way.
I think it's interesting.
It's the base, right? Like the sensitive thinking can't be if there's no aesthetic there.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's interesting you talking about the Magdalenas, because of course the name, I think, originally comes from the work with maids, and in Brazil they called Magdalenas, and Augusto wrote about that at one period, and how the women he was working with, they wanted also to be in a theater, and they wanted to have all that stuff that you get in a theater, and a dressing room and so on. And why not, if you see what I mean? And I think sometimes in our world of activist theater or applied theater, people neglect how much people just want to make great theater and have all the pleasures of making theater and being on stage and all that wonderful power, you know.
And I think, no, I think I saw it with women we be living with HIV, and with women with disabilities, that are groups of people that are supposed to be hidden. They are bodies that people don't want to see. They are like sick bodies. Of course, it's not what I think, right? But it's like the idea, the stereotype that is. So it's so powerful to come on stage and dance and sing and be with amazing costumes, and it's so revolutionary that many women of the Continental Project say that, okay, now people start listening to us.
How? I mean, one thing that touches that is, I've been lucky enough at Cardboard Citizens to make forum theatre pieces which we tour for quite a long time. And one of the advantages of that, so we might do a quite concentrated 8-week tour or something, you know, and it's every night. And one of the advantages of that is, of course, that you can invest in it, and you can actually have the materials that you need to make it look beautiful or whatever, and the sounds and so on. Whereas when we are working in a community for a very short time, obviously we can still do things. We can do things for no money, but it's more difficult sometimes to be able to lavish the care on the whole aesthetics. How many performances usually does a piece that you're working on get?
Well, I want to say something about when we don't have so much financial resources, because Bárbara and Till did a great exploration about sound and rhythm just with garbage, right? And how aesthetics,
the oppressed, Augusto was writing about working with for theatre. I understand that.
Yeah. And Claudia Simone, a lot of with paper and making costumes out of paper. So just for saying that. And then, it depends. There are groups that we work for 9 years and they get to perform, 100 of times. And then groups that they are shorter term. And it depends also if we go to festivals or if we organize like more intense, sometimes, for example, for
lost you again there, Lorena. Okay. Just lost you again. We're so close to the finish line. But just say that last sentence again. I think if Mr. Internet will hold up, or Ms. Internet, say that last sentence again, please.
that also, for example, with groups, and sometimes we do legislative theater processes. We do like 2 weeks of performances every day. So it's like intense performancing to have all these proposals and then go on. It depends, but we...
Yeah. Look, we've got 5 minutes left. It's the time has rushed by, as has happened to me before here. I suppose I've got a couple of last questions. We have some friends from our good friend Sanjoy Ganguly in India. We have another friend from India. Sanjoy is with us.
Sanjoy.
And other friends. So sometimes these meetings are just a very pleasant gathering of very old friends. And we're lucky, aren't we, in our Theatre of the Oppressed World, because we have these connections and we can learn from each other in these different situations. I suppose last couple of questions. What now? What now, Lorena? Where does Metoca go? And is there something particular to do with the historical moment of the epidemic that you see a function, a new function or a particular function for TO in Guatemala or in Latin America as a whole?
Yeah, well, I think TO it always has the function. I'm going to do this weekend another workshop, another episode, another part of the process with the women women with disabilities. And we didn't do a presential workshop for a year, and I see how much is needed. We explore other things. We did a series, podcast and comics. So we continue create and using their voices, their stories to say things. But I think, there are some things that we can't replace and they need to be presential in presence. And then also there's a lot, it's a big thing that it's allowing us this pandemic as the festival that we did online. So the Magdalena Network festival that we did, and we had this opportunity to meet as a network, and was the biggest festival that of many of the members of the network. So I think now that we know, we started more to work more in local networks and using all this virtual space to progress, to develop. And I think that's an opportunity that this time gives us.
Again, I think we've all learned that, haven't we, that it's an opportunity for sure to be in touch with people all around the world, which is great. But there's also, your organization is called Touch Me, and we're not allowed to touch. We're not allowed to touch each other. So I don't know if you feel that there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, maybe we will need to learn again how to touch people. I don't know. Maybe these behaviors will need unlearning, like some other behaviors. Bárbara is also with us, by the way. I think she's been with us for some time. Yeah. And what would you like to see happen in the Theatre of the Oppressed World?
Mm-hmm.
Anything?
Well, I think I would like to
see. There have been some discussions online recently you're probably aware of, because so many people are facing so many difficult situations in Palestine, in Mozambique, in different parts of the world. It's almost like a terrible hierarchy of oppressions all around the world. And I think there's an interesting question about what we as a community can or can't do about that. I don't know if you have thoughts about that. Are you there?
Yeah, I think that there's a long way to go with diversity in our network, to have more representation of different realities and different practitioners and different social groups in our network. That's why I'm glad to be here as a Latin American woman and be able to share also from this social role. And I think that if we increase in this research and giving those, like opening the space and letting go some of the privilege, we can hear more present the needs of the different groups that are in.
Are we going to be sabotaged at this late moment?
Maybe we
are. Maybe we are. Lorena, we lost you at the very end of that, but I think we got your gist, and we are perfectly on time. So I wanted to thank you very much for speaking to me. It's been fascinating to hear what you're doing, and it's obviously really, really important. And if you look in the chat, you can see how to find out more about Lorena's work and the work of Metoca, and no doubt the Magdalena's network also there. So I just want to say we have some really interesting further conversations coming up. We will be talking to Ashta Theater to Iman Aoun on the 30th of June. We'll be talking to Alvin Kossa on the 14th of July from Mozambique. And we'll be talking to Ariane Rezai from Iran, on the 14th of July. So those are 16th of June, Ashtar, 30th of June, Alvin, 14th of July, Ariane. So thank you very much indeed, Lorena, and good luck with all your work, and please stay in touch. Yeah? Ciao. And thank you for everybody who's listened. Thank you.